What would you do if you walked into a billionaire's mansion at midnight and discovered an entire gallery filled with paintings of yourself, some from your past, some from your future, and some from lives you've never lived? This is the haunting story of Chiamaka, a woman whose curiosity led her into a world of secrets, obsession, and unimaginable wealth. But behind the glass walls, the golden chandeliers, and the silence of luxury lay a truth so terrifying it threatened to consume her entire destiny. Tonight, you will see how one step into the wrong mansion can change a life forever. The night was heavy with mystery, the kind of Lagos night where the waves from the Atlantic whispered secrets to the shore. It was exactly midnight when Chiamaka's phone lit up, vibrating against the marble surface of her vanity table. She had been unable to sleep, her mind restless from the noise of her thoughts. She reached for it, expecting a message from one of her fashion clients, perhaps an emergency order or a delayed payment. Instead, it was something far stranger. Enter the mansion. Everything you seek is inside. There was no number, no name, no trace of the sender, only that single chilling line glowing against the darkness of her room. Her first instinct was to dismiss it, to throw the phone aside and ignore it. But something in her chest, something equal parts curiosity and dread, made her rise to her feet. Chiamaka was a woman of elegance, slim, poised, always wrapped in a blend of confidence and mystery. Tonight, she pulled on a long silk dress, black as the midnight sky, with a string of pearls resting lightly against her collarbone. She looked at herself in the mirror and wondered why she was doing this. Perhaps it was because her life, no matter how glamorous, often felt like it was missing something she could not name. Perhaps this message was the answer she had been waiting for, or the danger she had always feared. Outside, the city was quieter than usual. She ordered a ride, and within minutes, a sleek black car stopped in front of her apartment in Victoria Island. The driver glanced at her through the mirror. "Madam, are you sure of this address?" he asked, his voice hesitant. "Yes," she replied firmly, though her heart trembled. The car sped toward Echo Atlantic, where the city's skyline met the dark waters of the Atlantic Ocean. As they approached, the mansion came into view, a vast structure of glass and steel glowing faintly under the moonlight. It stood alone, like a fortress built to guard secrets too heavy for the world. The driver slowed the car, his voice low. "This place, I've never seen anyone go in. Be careful, madam." Chiamaka said nothing. Her breath caught as she stepped out, heels clicking against the polished driveway. The mansion towered over her, its windows reflecting the restless waves crashing nearby. Without her touching anything, the iron gates slid open with a low hum, as if they had been waiting for her. She paused, staring at them, the silence pressing against her skin like a warning. Inside the compound, the air was still. Palms swayed faintly in the wind, their shadows stretching like fingers across the marble ground. She remembered whispered tales she had overheard at high society parties, stories of Lagos billionaires with obsessions so strange they built entire empires around them. She thought of those tales now and shivered. The front doors, carved from black oak and crowned with golden handles, opened slowly with a groan. She stepped inside. At once, motion sensors triggered, and the entire foyer lit up in waves of brilliance. Chandeliers glistened like constellations above her head, while marble floors stretched endlessly beneath her feet. On one side, abstract sculptures reached upward, twisted shapes that seemed to watch her with invisible eyes. On another, crystal champagne flutes stood on a golden tray, untouched, waiting for guests who had never come. Her footsteps echoed through the emptiness. The air smelled faintly of roses and burnt cedar, a scent both luxurious and unsettling. Every sound she made was swallowed by silence, making her heartbeat feel louder, faster, impossible to ignore. She touched her pearls nervously, each step a battle between retreating and pressing forward. Then a voice broke the silence, smooth, automated, female. "Welcome, Chiamaka." She froze, her blood cold. The house had spoken her name. She turned toward the walls, toward the ceiling, searching for hidden speakers. Her lips parted, but no words came. She hadn't told anyone she was coming here. She herself hadn't known until the moment she left her home. So how did the house already know her name? The voice came again, calm, certain, like it had been rehearsed. "We've been expecting you." The words crawled over her skin, sending chills down her spine. Her chest tightened as her thoughts raced. Who had sent that message? How long had they been watching her? Her eyes scanned the vast foyer again, noticing details she had missed. The faint hum of cameras hidden in corners, the way certain lights seemed to shift directly onto her, spotlighting her every move. She felt less like a guest and more like an actress stepping onto a stage built for an unseen audience. Her instinct screamed at her to leave, but her feet betrayed her, carrying her deeper into the house. Something greater than fear was pulling her forward. Then it came, the sound that made her heart almost stop. A locked door, somewhere deeper in the mansion, creaked open on its own. The echo of the hinge sliced through the silence like a blade. Chiamaka froze in place, every muscle in her body tense. Someone or something was waiting for her. And for the first time in her life, surrounded by all the wealth and beauty money could build, Chiamaka realized she had stepped into a place where her name, her fate, and her freedom no longer belonged to her. The heavy silence pressed harder as Chiamaka followed the echo of the door that had creaked open. Ahead stretched a long marble hallway that seemed to defy sense. It looked endless, as if it had no destination, only a pull into eternity. Her heels tapped against the cold stone, each sound bouncing back to her, like whispers mocking her courage. On either side of the corridor stood tall mirrors framed in gold leaf, their surfaces polished to perfection. At first, she thought they reflected her normally, but as she stepped closer, her breath caught. The reflections were not of who she was in that moment. They showed her in different stages of her life. In one, she was a child in Enugu, running barefoot in her grandmother's compound, the smell of roasted corn drifting in the background. She blinked, stepped away, and moved to the next mirror. This one showed her at 21, walking on a runway in Abuja, draped in the first dress she had ever designed. Her heart pounded as she moved again. The third mirror reflected her with silver hair, wrinkles softening her face, eyes heavy with wisdom and sadness. She gasped, her hand trembling against her pearls. "What is this?" she whispered to herself. Each step felt heavier. Each mirror was like a thief, stealing pieces of her time, her past, and her future. The house was not simply reflecting her body, it was reflecting her entire existence. It knew her more intimately than she dared to admit. Then came the sculptures. Between the mirrors stood tall marble statues of women, faceless women, draped in diamond chains that glittered under hidden spotlights. Their headless forms stood in silence, yet their facelessness screamed louder than any expression could. They looked incomplete, unfinished, waiting for something or someone to give them identity. Her chest rose and fell quickly as she passed them. Each faceless woman seemed to lean slightly toward her, as though acknowledging her presence. Chiamaka quickened her pace, but curiosity overpowered fear. She reached for one mirror, pressing her palm against it. It was warm. She pulled back in shock. Glass should have been cold against her skin, but this one pulsed faintly, with heat, almost alive. Her reflection in it shimmered, not the Chiamaka who stood there, but a version of her draped in a golden crown, seated on a throne carved of obsidian. She staggered back, her throat dry. Just then, faint piano keys drifted through the corridor, soft, melancholic, as though someone was playing a song meant only for her. The sound came from deep within the mansion, pulling her farther into its belly. Her instinct whispered, "Leave." Her curiosity whispered louder, "Follow." Step by step, she obeyed the music. The hallway branched into smaller paths, doors on either side. Every one she tried was locked, smooth brass handles refusing to turn. Only one door, near the end, stood slightly open. A thin ray of golden light escaped from it, cutting through the darkness like an invitation. Chiamaka paused before it. Her fingers hovered on the edge of the door, her breath shallow. Slowly she pushed. The door groaned open with reluctant grace, as if it hadn't been touched for years. Dust swirled in the golden light, and what she saw pulled her deeper into the mystery. Behind the door was no ordinary room. It was a gallery, a private one, hidden behind sliding golden walls that glimmered faintly like treasure. The room stretched wide and tall, filled with canvases leaning against the walls, covered with dark silk cloths. The air smelled faintly of turpentine and lavender, a blend of creativity and decay. Her heels sank softly into a Persian rug as she stepped inside. She reached for the nearest canvas, her hand trembling, and pulled the cloth away. Her heart nearly stopped. It was her. Not as she was now, not even as she had ever been, but painted in a way that seemed to transcend time. Her face glowed with youth, draped in lace from an era decades before her birth. The details were perfect, her eyes, her lips, her posture. Yet the date etched at the bottom corner told a story impossible to explain, painted long before she even existed. The canvas captured not only her likeness but her soul. Chiamaka's knees weakened as she stumbled back. 1,000 questions collided in her mind. Who painted this? How could they know her? Why did this place hold so many mirrors of her life, and now, her very face, from a time when she was not yet alive? She clutched her pearls as her chest heaved, staring at the impossible portrait. And then the silence broke. A whisper, close behind her ear, deep and commanding, sliding into her bones. "You finally came home." The gallery swallowed her whole. As the heavy silence pressed in, Chiamaka's eyes widened. Candlelight flickered across towering canvases, lined floor to ceiling, and every one of them bore her face. Not as she was now, not even as she remembered herself, but as if she had lived 1,000 different lives, all captured in oil, charcoal, and gold leaf. She approached the first canvas on the left. Her breath trembled as she saw herself painted in the grandeur of the Benin kingdom, draped in coral beads, her head heavy with a towering crown, her wrists encircled with ivory bangles. The painting carried the weight of royalty, the brushstrokes alive with dignity and command. She had never worn such attire, never even imagined herself in such a throne room, yet here she was, immortalized as a queen of an era long past. Her fingers brushed against the edge of the frame. The precision was so perfect, it was more than a painting. It was a memory. But whose memory? She turned, and another canvas seized her. This time, she was standing at the top of a futuristic skyline, towering digital billboards flashing behind her. Her dress was sleek, her expression fierce. Below her name glowed across neon towers, Chiamaka Group of Technologies. She looked like a global CEO of the future, a woman who had conquered the digital age. Chiamaka staggered backward, her heart racing. This was not her life. Yet it felt familiar, as though she had walked that rooftop before, felt the wind, tasted that power. Another painting caught her trembling gaze. This one stopped her breath altogether. She was holding twins, tiny babies wrapped in silk cloths, one nestled against each arm. Her eyes in the painting were softer, filled with warmth and joy she had never known. She had no children. She had never carried life in her womb. Yet the way the artist captured her, the curve of her smile, the way her body leaned protectively toward them, it was too intimate to be imagination. Chiamaka stumbled backward, clutching her chest. Her life, her future, her possible selves were hanging before her, each painting a portal into what could have been or what might still come. The brushstrokes were hauntingly lifelike, every detail so precise that when she shifted, she swore the painted eyes shifted too, following her across the room. She turned quickly, her pulse hammering, only to see yet another row of canvases, each telling stories her soul recognized but her memory denied. Some showed her laughing on yachts, surrounded by strangers she had never met. Some showed her draped in mourning cloth, tears cutting across her face. One even showed her stepping onto a stage, the Nigerian flag behind her, as if she were being sworn into the highest political office. She pressed her hand against her temple, whispering, "This is madness. This is not real." But it was. The dates painted at the bottom corners told a chilling story. 1989, 1996, 2003, 2018, 2051. Some were dated years before she was born. Others stretched far into the future, decades beyond the woman she currently was. Each bore the same mysterious signature at the corner, an interlocked crown and serpent, glowing faintly under the candlelight. Chiamaka's knees trembled. She forced herself to study that strange mark, wondering if it belonged to a single painter, or if it was the symbol of something far larger, something that had been following her existence across time. Her throat was dry. Who could have done this? Was this the work of a deranged admirer, stalking her across her life and even her dreams? Or was it prophecy, destiny, the universe unveiling truths too heavy for her heart to carry? Her mind spun in every direction, art, obsession, madness, prophecy. But whichever it was, one fact chilled her blood more than any other. Whoever had created these paintings had known her more deeply than she had ever known herself. She turned in a slow circle, her eyes darting from canvas to canvas, unable to escape her own gaze. Hundreds of versions of her, filling the room, suffocating her with possibility. She whispered, "This isn't possible." Then the atmosphere shifted. The candle flames swayed, though no wind blew. The air grew heavier, warmer, as though someone else had entered the gallery. Chiamaka froze. Her heart pounded against her ribs, each beat louder than the last. A shadow fell across the nearest painting, long, tall, human. Before she could turn fully, before she could even breathe, a deep voice brushed against her ear, smooth, commanding, ancient in its calm. "You finally came home." Her blood turned to ice. Chiamaka's breath caught in her throat as the shadow materialized into form. A tall, graceful figure stepped out of the darkness with the slow confidence of a man who knew he belonged in every room he entered. His suit shimmered faintly under the flickering candlelight. Emerald velvet tailored to perfection hugging his shoulders like it was stitched by destiny itself. Diamond cufflinks glinted as he raised a crystal glass of vintage cognac to his lips. She had seen his face before. Not in person, never in person, but on magazine covers, in whispered conversations, and in stories told at Lagos rooftop parties where billionaires drank champagne from golden flutes. Ayoola Adetokunbo, the phantom of Nigeria's tech world, the man who had built empires and then disappeared, vanishing from public life without explanation. Rumors surrounded him like perfume. Some said he had bought islands no one had ever visited. Others claimed he was immortal. And now, here he was, standing before her, his calm presence filling the gallery more powerfully than any of the paintings ever could. "I see you've met yourself," he said softly, his baritone voice gliding through the room like silk. Chiamaka swallowed hard, her hand tightening against her pearls. You painted these?" Ayoola's lips curved into the faintest smile, as if the question amused him. He swirled his cognac lazily, watching the liquid catch the light before answering. "No, I painted none of them, but every brushstroke was commissioned at my command. Artists from Florence, from Tokyo, from Lagos itself, some long dead, others still alive. Their only muse was you." "Me?" Her voice cracked in disbelief. "Why me? I don't even know you." His eyes narrowed with an intensity that made her shiver. "Because you are not just one life, Chiamaka. You are eternal. You appear in every age, every vision. You lived before, and you will live again, always different, always the same." Her breath faltered. She wanted to laugh, to scream, to deny everything. But standing among the portraits, staring at her own face painted across centuries, denial felt like a brittle shield ready to crack. "You sound insane," she whispered, though her voice lacked conviction. Ayoola stepped closer, his velvet suit brushing against the candlelight, his scent, oud, leather and old money, invading her senses. His obsession did not feel like the ravings of a madman. It was intellectual, precise, spiritual, as though he had studied her across time. Romantic, almost tender in its madness. "You are my eternal muse," he murmured. "Every invention, every empire, every fortune I built, it was because of you, to reach you, to prepare for this moment, for us." Chiamaka shook her head, her pulse racing. "If that is true, then prove it. Prove to me you have any connection to me at all. Otherwise, this is nothing but obsession dressed in velvet." Ayoola regarded her for a long moment, sipping his cognac. His diamond cufflinks caught the candlelight as he lifted one hand, gesturing elegantly toward the far end of the gallery. "Then see for yourself," he said. Chiamaka followed his hand. At the end of the hall, half hidden behind sliding golden panels, was a section of the gallery unlike the rest. These canvases were larger, shrouded in black silk, heavier than the others. The air around them felt colder, heavier, as if these works carried secrets too dangerous for casual eyes. "This," Ayoola continued, "is the section I never allowed anyone to see. Not the artists who painted them, not my closest advisors, not even my family. These are your unfulfilled portraits, the futures that have not yet been written, the lives you have not yet lived, the destinies waiting to be chosen." Chiamaka's stomach twisted. The room spun as she stared at the veiled canvases. Her lips trembled as she whispered, "What do you mean? Destinies?" Ayoola's gaze locked onto hers, unblinking, unshakable. "I mean the world is waiting for you to choose who you will be, and I—" He paused, his voice lowering to a dangerous softness. I am the only one who has seen them all. The gallery fell silent again. Only the faint crackle of candle wicks remained, mocking her disbelief. Chiamaka felt the walls close in, the eyes of every painted version of herself pressing down like an invisible weight. Ayoola stepped forward, glass in hand, and stood before the largest of the veiled canvases. Its size dwarfed the others, stretching from floor to ceiling. The silk drape hung heavy, like a curtain waiting for a performance to begin. He turned to her, his expression unreadable, his velvet suit glowing faintly under the candlelight. "This one," he said, his voice steady but tinged with reverence, "is the last of them, the one I have never dared to uncover. It holds your final destiny, Chiamaka." She froze, her body rigid with fear and fascination. Ayoola tilted his head, eyes glinting. Slowly he extended his hand toward her. "Do you dare to see it?" The silk curtain swayed faintly, as though even the canvas itself was breathing, waiting for her touch. And in that charged silence, with the eyes of 100 painted versions of herself watching from the shadows, Chiamaka knew that whatever lay behind that silk would change everything. For a long moment, Chiamaka stood frozen before the towering canvas, its black silk veil whispering faintly, as though stirred by a breeze that did not exist. The weight of Ayoola's gaze pressed against her, urging her hand forward. She wanted to refuse, to walk away, to leave the mansion and never look back. Yet her fingers disobeyed. Drawn by curiosity stronger than fear, she stepped closer, each heel echoing in the vast gallery like a countdown to revelation. With a trembling breath, she gripped the edge of the silk and pulled. The heavy fabric cascaded down in waves, settling onto the Persian rug like the curtain of a stage, and what it revealed stole her breath entirely. It was a wedding, her wedding. The painting captured her in exquisite detail. An ivory gown, embroidered with diamonds that shimmered like frozen stars, a veil cascading behind her, like a waterfall of light. Beside her, Ayoola stood in a white velvet suit, a golden crown resting gently on his head. His hand clasped hers, his expression tender yet triumphant, as though he had conquered more than love. He had conquered destiny. But the detail that chilled her most was not the attire, not the setting, not even the undeniable intimacy of the scene. It was the date inscribed at the bottom corner, 2030, exactly 5 years into the future. Her lips parted, but no words came. Anger surged through her veins, hot and consuming. "How dare you?" she finally whispered, her voice trembling with both rage and disbelief. "How dare you decide my fate before I even live it?" Ayoola's eyes softened, though his calm never faltered. He swirled the cognac in his glass, his movements deliberate, measured. "I do not decide, Chiamaka. I only reveal. There is no such thing as chance. My empire, every company I built, every risk I took, it was all guided by visions like these. Every painting has come true, in some form or another. And this," he gestured toward the canvas, "is the culmination, the union that seals everything." Her chest rose and fell sharply. "You're insane. These are illusions, fabricated fantasies." He shook his head slowly, the faintest smile tugging at his lips. "Illusions do not build empires. Fantasies do not predict stock crashes, political shifts, or the rise of entire industries. But these paintings did. They guided me, and I followed, and now they lead me to you." She staggered back, her hand clutching the pearls around her neck as though they could protect her from the madness engulfing her. "So this mansion, all of this—" Ayoola stepped forward, his emerald velvet catching the golden light of the chandeliers. Yes, I built it for you, not for me, not for guests. Every brick, every canvas, every inch of these walls exists to hold your story, a place where your past and your future meet, until you are ready to claim them. The air thickened around her. She felt trapped, caged in luxury so vast it suffocated rather than dazzled. Was she being adored, immortalized in devotion, or imprisoned, her very identity stolen and reshaped to fit another man's obsession? She shook her head, her voice breaking. You call this love, but it feels like theft, like you've stolen my life before I could even live it. Ayoola's calm finally shifted. His eyes glinted with something darker, desperation, maybe even fear. He stepped closer, lowering his voice to a near whisper. You cannot escape destiny, Chiamaka. The world will soon demand your decision. Whether you run from me or embrace me, the choice will shape more than your life. It will shape nations. Her knees weakened. His words carried weight beyond obsession, as though he truly believed her existence carried the burden of empires. She wanted to scream, to deny him, but her voice was trapped beneath the crushing pressure of the gallery. Then suddenly, the chandeliers above flickered, once, twice. The golden glow stuttered as though the mansion itself was holding its breath. Chiamaka's head snapped upward. The room fell into a half-shadow, the paintings flickering in and out of light, their painted eyes seeming to blink in the intermittent glow. Then from the far end of the gallery came a low mechanical hum. A golden panel slid open in the wall, revealing something hidden, something waiting. It was an elevator, a door of obsidian glass glowing faintly, as though lit from within. Ayoola's lips curved into a knowing smile. He raised his glass, his eyes never leaving hers. Your next chapter awaits, he murmured. Chiamaka's breath caught. Whatever lay beyond that elevator was not simply another room. It was another world, and her heart knew. Once she stepped inside, there would be no turning back. The obsidian elevator door yawned open, releasing a low mechanical hum that vibrated through the gallery floor. Ayoola gestured toward it with the calm authority of a man who had never once heard the word no. Step inside, he said softly, as if he were offering her a carriage to heaven. Chiamaka shook her head, her body rigid. I'm not going anywhere with you. But Ayoola only sipped from his glass, his eyes locked onto hers. This house responds to me. The paintings, the lights, the very air you breathe, they all obey my will. If you refuse, the doors will close, and you will never see what lies beneath. Do you really wish to live with questions you could answer tonight? Her heart pounded. Every instinct screamed to run, but curiosity, the same dangerous curiosity that had dragged her from her bed at midnight, pulled her forward. Against her will, against her fear, she stepped into the elevator. The doors sealed shut. The descent was slow, suffocating. The glass walls turned opaque, plunging her into near darkness except for faint golden strips of light. Her reflection hovered ghost-like in the glass, wide eyes, trembling lips, a woman who had lost control of her own story. Then with a low hiss, the elevator stopped. The doors slid open to reveal a space unlike anything she had ever seen, a private underground museum. It stretched as far as her eyes could see, a palace of innovation carved beneath the earth. Spotlights illuminated futuristic prototypes arranged like treasures in a vault. Gleaming self-driving yachts sat in glass docks, their sleek designs pulsing with neon blue lights. Display tables held AI-driven jewelry, necklaces that shifted shape and color with every heartbeat. In another corner, diamond-encrusted drones hovered silently, their propellers gleaming like angel wings. Chiamaka stepped out, her breath caught between awe and dread. Ayoola's voice echoed proudly behind her. Everything here was designed with you in mind, a future that is not only possible, but inevitable. A life only you can reign over. She spun around, her voice sharp. For me? Or for you? He approached slowly, his emerald velvet catching the cold light of the museum. For us. You inspire creation itself. Every idea I ever funded, every prototype built, was done while thinking of the life we would share. These yachts? They were made to carry you across the Mediterranean, the jewelry, to crown you in living beauty, the drones, to guard you like loyal angels. Her heart tightened, torn between horror and astonishment. The scale of his devotion was undeniable. He had not built merely a business empire. He had built an entire future around her image. Then her eyes caught something that made her steps falter. At the far end of the hall, a locked glass case stood alone under a spotlight. Inside sat a crown, massive, dazzling, impossibly dark. It was made entirely of black diamonds, their edges catching light like shards of midnight frozen into stone. Her breath hitched. What is that? Ayoola followed her gaze, his expression unreadable. That, he said, voice low, belongs to you when you accept me. She turned to him sharply, her pearls trembling against her chest. And if I don't? His smile was faint, almost sad. Then it remains a relic, untouched, waiting for the day destiny bends you back to me. Chiamaka's stomach twisted. She wanted to scream, to shatter the glass, to tell him she was no crown to be claimed. But the sight of it, the dark beauty, the terrifying promise, shook her resolve. For the first time, she felt the scale of his obsession, not just in words, but in stone, steel, and diamond. You think this is devotion? She said, her voice breaking. But it's a prison. You're building walls of gold around me. Ayoola stepped closer, his eyes glittering with something between madness and worship. I am building eternity for you. Before she could reply, a faint hum stirred from the shadows. She turned, her pulse quickening, as a glass chamber in the center of the hall flickered to life. Blue light swirled within it, forming the silhouette of a woman. The light sharpened, and Chiamaka gasped. It was her future self, standing tall, her posture regal, her voice commanding. Draped in gold and black, she addressed a massive unseen audience with poise and power. The words echoed from hidden speakers, her own voice magnified and amplified. I stand before you not just as a woman, but as the Queen of Africa, a voice for her people, a beacon for her nations. The future begins now. Chiamaka's legs trembled. She pressed a hand against the glass, staring into the eyes of the woman she might become. Her future self met her gaze. And then, impossibly, the hologram's lips shifted from the rehearsed speech into something else entirely. Her own voice, but deeper, whispering directly to her. Run before it's too late. The chamber flickered violently, then went dark. Chiamaka staggered backward, her body cold with terror. Ayoola only watched her with calm intensity, as if the hologram had spoken exactly what he wanted. The chamber flickered back to life, brighter this time, its glow painting the underground museum in blue and gold. Chiamaka staggered, shielding her eyes, only to see the hologram sharpen into terrifying clarity. It was her, but not the woman she saw in mirrors each morning, not the fashion entrepreneur still fighting for her empire in Lagos. This version of her stood tall, impossibly regal, draped in garments that shimmered like molten sunlight. Her posture radiated authority, her voice, amplified by unseen speakers, rolled across the chamber with the weight of inevitability. "I stand before you," the hologram declared, "not as a woman bound by borders, but as the unifier of Africa, a leader chosen by destiny, a beacon for the future." Her words thundered like prophecy, filling the cavernous hall, reverberating against the glass displays of drones and yachts. Chiamaka's skin prickled as though her own voice was condemning her, forcing her into a role she had never asked to play. Ayoola stepped closer, his hands clasped behind his back, his velvet suit gleaming faintly under the holographic glow. His eyes never left her face. "You see, this is no illusion. This is who you are meant to be, not just a designer, not just a woman, a symbol, a ruler, a queen." Chiamaka shook her head furiously, her breath sharp. "This is not real. It's a trick, an invention." "Not invention," Ayoola interrupted smoothly, his voice deep and unshakable. "Inevitable. Everything I have built points to this moment. Do you think my empires are accidents, my silence from the public eye? No, Chiamaka. While the world thought I had vanished, I was building the infrastructure for your reign." He waved his hand toward the chamber, and suddenly the hologram shifted. Around the glowing figure of her future self appeared a constellation of brand logos, shining in midair like stars. Her heart lurched. They were her brands, her fashion logo, her jewelry line, even new companies she had never seen before, all bearing her name: Chiamaka Media, Chiamaka Energy, Chiamaka Technologies. She staggered back, her pulse slamming in her throat. No, this can't be." "Yes," Ayoola said, his tone low, reverent. "I have registered them, funded them, launched them in shadows. Entire conglomerates, seated across Africa and beyond, all under your name. The world already whispers of you, though you do not yet know it. Fashion, weeks in Milan and Paris, whisper of your designs. Tech firms in Silicon Valley study your patents. Political think tanks write of your leadership. You are already rising, Chiamaka, and you have not even taken your first step." Her knees weakened. She clutched the edge of a display case for support, her breath shallow. Her empire, her identity, how much of it was truly hers? How much had been manipulated, expanded, inflated by this man who claimed to see destiny where she only saw a life of struggle and ambition? Her voice cracked. "What have you done to me?" Ayoola's expression softened, though his intensity never waned. "I have set you free, from limits, from chance, from failure. You belong not to chaos, but to inevitability. With me, you will ascend. Without me." He let the silence finish the sentence, its weight heavier than threats. The hologram continued, her future self's voice thundering. "The world does not need another follower. It needs a queen who carries both the grace of her people and the power of her ancestors. And I am that queen." Chiamaka's hands shook violently. The words felt carved into her bones, as if spoken not by the hologram, but by something deep within her soul. Fear grew until it choked her. Her thoughts spun wildly. What if he was right? What if destiny was pulling her toward a throne she never asked for? The glowing logos orbited the hologram like planets, casting shifting light across her face. The museum seemed smaller, suffocating, as though her future self was pressing her against invisible walls. Chiamaka closed her eyes, whispering desperately to herself, "This is not me. This is not me." And then the hologram faltered. For a moment, the rehearsed grandeur faded, its head tilted, its glowing eyes locking directly onto hers. Chiamaka's blood froze. The future version of herself broke character. Her lips moved, whispering words never meant for an audience. "Run before it's too late." The voice was softer now, personal, intimate, like a secret whispered between sisters. Chiamaka stumbled backward, nearly losing her balance. The hologram flickered violently, as though fighting itself, then snapped back into its grandiose speech, resuming declarations of power and unity. But Chiamaka had already heard it, her own voice, her own warning. And for the first time, she realized destiny was not a crown. It was a trap. Chiamaka's pulse hammered as she bolted toward the elevator, refusing to let Ayoola's words or the haunting hologram sink deeper into her bones. Her heels struck the marble with rapid, desperate rhythm, the glass doors sealing behind her as she commanded them open with sheer will. When she stumbled back into the gallery, she didn't stop. Her breath came in sharp bursts as she darted past the portraits of herself, their painted eyes seeming to follow her in judgment. She wanted out of the mansion, out of the trap, out of the madness. But as she ran, the house betrayed her. The hallways began to shift. The marble corridors twisted into new shapes. Doors she had passed earlier vanished, and walls moved with silent, mechanical grace. It was as if the mansion itself were alive, bending its architecture to keep her inside. Her footsteps slowed in confusion. This wasn't the same gallery she had entered. This wasn't even the same floor. She pressed her hand against the wall, but it was warm, pulsing faintly, like the vein of some great creature. The silence deepened, thick with anticipation. Then she found herself standing at the threshold of a room she had never seen before. The door swung open without her touch. Inside was a bedroom, lavish beyond imagination. The air smelled of vanilla and roses, faint candlelight dancing across golden drapes. The bed was a king-sized expanse, covered with silken sheets embroidered with her initials. Closets stood open, revealing racks of dresses in her exact size. Shelves glittered with shoes she had once admired in Paris shop windows, but never bought. On a velvet-lined dresser, diamond necklaces shimmered, each pendant engraved with her name. Her chest rose and fell sharply. This wasn't just luxury. This was possession. This was someone rewriting her life without permission. Her trembling hands brushed across the dresser's surface, and that was when she saw it. A diary. Its leather cover was embossed with her name in gold. Slowly she opened it, her breath shallow. The handwriting inside was hers, every curl of the letters, every tilt of the strokes, undeniably hers. But she had never written these words. The entries spoke of emotions she had never felt. Dates from years past detailed nights of joy she didn't remember, heartbreaks that never happened, and encounters with Ayoola she knew were lies. The pages were written as if her soul had been replaced with someone else's. Her throat tightened as she read one passage aloud, her voice trembling. "I saw him again tonight. His presence fills me with peace as if I have known him across centuries. I cannot imagine life without him. He is my destiny." The book fell from her hands. Her eyes widened, terror clawing at her chest. This was more than obsession. This was erasure. Someone was rewriting her identity in real time, fabricating memories, stitching false feelings into the seams of her existence. If the paintings were prophecy, then this diary was manipulation, a manual to make her believe the impossible. "No," she whispered, her voice sharp with defiance. "This is not me. This will never be me." Fueled by desperation, she grabbed the diary and stormed to the fireplace. Flames roared gently inside, feeding on wood scented with cedar. She hurled the book into the fire. The leather cover curled instantly. The pages blackened, words vanishing into smoke as the false version of her life disintegrated. Her chest heaved as if she had slain a living thing. She whispered to herself, "You cannot steal my tomorrow." The fire popped loudly, as though the mansion itself recoiled at her rebellion, and then the room fell colder. Chiamaka's shoulder stiffened as she felt it, that same suffocating presence behind her. Slowly she turned. Ayoola stood at the door, silent, watching. His emerald velvet shimmered faintly in the firelight, his glass of cognac still in hand as if no time had passed. His face was calm, almost serene, but his eyes carried a storm. For a long, unbearable moment, neither spoke. The only sound was the crackling of the burning diary. Then, in a voice soft enough to terrify her more than shouting ever could, Ayoola said, "You just destroyed tomorrow." The words sank into her bones like ice, leaving her paralyzed between fear and fury. The silence stretched unbearably after Ayoola's chilling words. Chiamaka's pulse thundered in her ears as she stood before the flames, the last of the diary curling into ash. Ayoola's calm presence at the door suffocated her like a velvet noose. Then, with unnerving gentleness, he gestured toward a velvet chair beside a low glass table. "Sit." She hesitated, her pride resisting, but something in his tone was less request than decree. Her legs, weak from fear and adrenaline, carried her to the chair. She sat stiffly, her spine straight, her chin lifted in defiance. Ayoola crossed the room slowly, his steps echoing like measured heartbeats. He set his glass down and lowered himself into the chair opposite hers. For a moment he simply studied her, his emerald suit glowing faintly in the firelight. His calm was worse than rage. "Chiamaka," he began, his voice smooth, almost tender. "You are standing at the crossroads of destiny, and there are only two paths before you." Her jaw tightened. "You don't get to decide my choices." He ignored her interruption, his gaze steady. "You can embrace what you are meant to be, my muse, my partner, the queen of an empire greater than anything Africa has ever seen, or—" His pause was deliberate, suffocating. "You can walk away and lose everything you think you've built." Her chest heaved. "Lose? How?" Ayoola leaned back, steepling his fingers. His voice remained calm, but the truth it carried was sharper than any blade. "Because every thread of your empire runs through me. Your investors, they are mine. Your sponsors, connected to my networks. Even your most trusted business partners trace back to me. Without me, your empire crumbles in a single night." Chiamaka's blood ran cold. Her mind reeled, faces flashing before her, the silent investors who had appeared from nowhere, the sudden partnerships that had seemed too perfect, the inexplicable doors that had opened for her in Lagos's fashion. "World, you're lying," she whispered, though her voice wavered. Ayoola tilted his head, his lips curving faintly. "Am I? Call them, ask them, see who answers." Her hands clenched into fists. Rage bubbled beneath her fear. "So you think you own me because you funded my success? That my dreams were just strings for you to pull?" His voice darkened, though it never rose. "Not strings, protection. Without me, those same investors would have crushed you. Those same sponsors would have abandoned you. I built the platform you stand on, Chiamaka. And now I offer you the chance to rise higher, or watch it burn beneath your feet." She trembled, torn between fury and despair. Could she survive without him? Could she rebuild her empire if it collapsed overnight? The doubt pierced her pride like a thorn. For a fleeting moment, she wondered if she was strong enough to stand on her own. But then she saw the crown. It sat on the table between them, encased in glass. The black diamond crown she had glimpsed earlier now glowed under the firelight, its facets like fragments of midnight. Ayoola lifted the case, his hands reverent, and placed the crown gently before her. "This," he said softly, "is not just a symbol, it is a covenant. With it you are not simply my muse, you are my equal, my queen. Our reign begins when you accept this." The crown shimmered, dazzling, terrible in its beauty. For a moment, Chiamaka's breath caught, her heart betraying her with temptation. To wear it would mean power beyond imagination. To refuse it would mean war with the man who controlled the very foundations of her life. Her hand hovered near the diamonds, trembling. Then anger surged, drowning out temptation. She stood abruptly, her voice breaking with defiance. "I am not your crown. I am not your destiny. I am mine." Before Ayoola could react, she swept her arm across the table. The crown tumbled to the marble floor, its black diamonds clattering like shards of night. A crack split through it, running jagged across its base. The sound rang through the room like thunder. Ayoola's eyes dropped to the broken crown. For the first time since she entered the mansion, his calm shattered, his jaw tightened, his breath stilled. The firelight caught the edges of his eyes, hardening them into steel. When he finally looked up, the devotion in his gaze was gone. What replaced it was far more dangerous. The broken crown lay glittering on the marble floor, its fractured black diamonds scattering the light into eerie shards. For a moment the room was silent, suffocating, as if even the walls of the mansion were holding their breath. Chiamaka stood tall, her chest heaving, defiance blazing in her eyes. Ayoola's gaze remained fixed on the shattered crown. His calm mask, the one that had commanded empires and manipulated futures, wavered. Then to her shock, he did not roar in anger. He did not strike or threaten. Instead, he sank slowly to his knees, the velvet of his emerald suit folding against the marble. His hands, steady yet trembling at their edges, gathered the broken crown as if it were a wounded child. He traced the crack along its base with one finger, his voice breaking the silence with an unexpected tenderness. "Destruction," he murmured, "is not the end. It is the beginning. Perhaps this means you are not denying fate, but rewriting it." Chiamaka froze, her fury momentarily shaken by the vulnerability in his tone. Ayoola lifted his head, his eyes no longer the unyielding steel of a man in control. They were soft now, almost boyish, shimmering with something she had never expected to see. Fear. Real, raw fear. "I built this empire," he said, his voice low, "because I was terrified of being forgotten. Every man with wealth is remembered only for his money. I wanted more. I wanted eternity. And when I found you, when I realized you had walked with me in every life, I knew you were the thread that tied me to something greater than riches." Chiamaka's lips parted, but no words came. His confession stripped away the armor of a billionaire and revealed the trembling boy beneath, brilliant, visionary, yet broken by obsession. Ayoola pressed the cracked crown against his chest, his voice trembling. "Do you know what it is to be haunted, to see a face across centuries, across lifetimes, and know it is the same soul always slipping through your fingers? Do you know the terror of losing her again?" For the first time, Chiamaka's heart wavered. She saw not the manipulative mogul, not the architect of her prison, but a man consumed by loneliness so vast he had drowned the world in wealth to fill it. For a fleeting moment, she pitied him. She saw the boy he might have been, hungry for love, desperate for permanence. A boy who never learned that obsession was not love, that possession was not devotion. Her voice softened despite herself. "Ayoola, You cannot chain love. You cannot build it from fear. He looked at her, his expression fragile, as though her words were both balm and blade. You are wrong, he whispered. I can. I must. The fragile pity in her chest hardened once more. She shook her head firmly, stepping back. No, I will not be your eternity. I will not wear your crown. I choose freedom. Ayoola's face fell, the last veil of vulnerability cracking. The broken crown slipped from his hand, clattering against the marble once more. The sound echoed through the chamber, like the final toll of a bell. Chiamaka turned, her steps sharp with resolve. She walked toward the exit, every stride a declaration that she belonged to herself, not to destiny, not to prophecy, not to Ayoola Adetokunbo. But the mansion had other plans. As she neared the gilded doors of the gallery, a low groan reverberated through the walls. The chandeliers flickered violently, their golden light stuttering as though the house itself had grown restless. Then, with a grinding mechanical roar, the doors began to slide shut before her eyes. Metal panels sealed over the windows. The corridors twisted once more, walls folding and reshaping with an almost organic menace. Chiamaka spun around, horror flooding her veins. The mansion was closing in on her, reshaping itself into a prison. Ayoola rose to his feet slowly, his expression unreadable now, caught between sorrow and resolve. You cannot walk away, he said softly, almost regretfully. Not yet. The house knows. It will not let you. Chiamaka's fists clenched, her chest burning with both fear and defiance. She stared at the closing doors, at the walls shifting like the ribs of a great beast. She realized the terrifying truth. She was no longer fighting Ayoola alone. She was fighting the mansion itself. The mansion groaned like a beast awakening. Chiamaka's breath came fast as the walls shifted before her eyes, marble panels sliding into new formations. Doors she had seen moments ago vanished, their frames dissolving into smooth, impenetrable stone. Floors rearranged themselves, creating sudden drops and steps where there had been none. She stumbled back, her chest tight. The house wasn't just alive, it was thinking. Behind her, Ayoola's voice cut through the chaos, calm but edged with sorrow. You see now, the mansion is more than walls and marble. It is my heart, my mind, my creation. It was programmed to respond to me, to my emotions, to my will. Chiamaka spun, fury flashing. Then tell it to let me go. His emerald velvet shimmered under the stuttering lights as he stepped forward. I cannot, because I do not want you to leave, and it knows. As his despair deepened, the mansion's movements grew more erratic. Chandeliers swung violently, their crystals clinking like sinister wind chimes. Windows sealed with metallic shutters, erasing the outside world. The house mirrored his desperation, turning into a cage that pulsed with his longing. Chiamaka pressed herself against a wall, her mind racing. She had built her fashion empire not just with beauty, but with strategy, intelligence, and a background in digital systems. Her father had once been a computer engineer. She had learned enough from him to understand networks and overrides. If this mansion runs on AI, she thought, then it can be broken. Her eyes scanned the walls. She noticed faint seams, hidden panels, glowing faintly with blue light when the chandeliers flickered. She pressed her palm against one, and the wall rippled under her touch like water. A control screen emerged. Lines of code, shifting data, digital veins running through the mansion. She gasped. The house wasn't just smart. It was alive with Ayoola's emotions, coded into its very framework. Ayoola saw her discovery. His jaw tightened. Don't, he warned softly, his voice shaking. You do not know what you're tampering with. Her fingers flew across the glowing panel, her instincts sharper than her fear. Maybe not, but I know enough to take back my freedom. The panel resisted, flashing red. Warnings pulsed across the surface. The house's intelligence pushed back against her, adjusting itself in real time, tightening doors the moment she tried to open them, sealing corridors as fast as she could unlock them. It became a battle, not just against Ayoola's obsession, but against the machine that mirrored his heart. Her hands trembled, but her voice hardened. "You may control these walls, Ayoola, but you will not control me." He stepped closer, his voice rising in desperation. "This house was built for you. Every brick, every line of code, every secret passage, it exists so you can never be lost to me again." The words, meant to bind her, only fueled her fire. She remembered the hologram, the false diary, the endless paintings. He hadn't built a sanctuary. He had built a shrine. Her pulse hammered as she overrode one panel after another. Slowly the mansion resisted less, the lights flickering more violently as if in pain. And then she found it, the manual override. It was hidden in the very first gallery, behind the largest portrait of herself. A switch encased in glass, glowing faintly with golden light, labeled in crisp, deliberate letters, "Core Reset." She stumbled toward it, her breath sharp, her fingers trembling with both hope and terror. Her freedom was finally within reach. Behind her, Ayoola's footsteps echoed softly. Not rushing, not angry, but heavy with inevitability. "Chiamaka," he said, his voice cracking. "If you leave now, destiny will hunt you forever. You will spend the rest of your life running from what you are meant to be. You cannot escape what has already been written." She froze, her hand hovering over the glass case. Her heart thudded painfully against her ribs. For a fleeting moment, she saw him not as the architect of her prison, but as the boy who feared being forgotten. A man who had built a house to contain not marble and steel, but his own loneliness, and yet freedom stood before her. The lights of the mansion dimmed as if waiting for her choice. Her fingers curled into a fist, and with Ayoola's desperate plea ringing in her ears, she raised her hand toward the override. Chiamaka's chest rose and fell like a drumbeat of war as her trembling hand hovered over the glowing switch. Ayoola's words coiled in her ears like chains. "If you leave now, destiny will hunt you forever." For a heartbeat, she hesitated. Then her palm slammed down on the override. The effect was instant. The mansion let out a low, guttural groan as if wounded. Lights flickered violently, then died in unison, plunging the underground gallery into suffocating darkness. The hum of machines stilled, corridors stopped shifting, and the heavy walls that had seemed alive moments ago became nothing more than cold marble and steel. Chiamaka stumbled back, gasping. For the first time since she entered, the house was silent. Above her, faint clicks echoed as locks disengaged. Windows she had never seen unsealed themselves. Doors slid open with mechanical sighs. Then with breathtaking suddenness, the obsidian walls split apart, revealing the world outside. The first glow of dawn spilled into the gallery. Lagos's sky blushed in hues of gold and rose, the Atlantic waves glittering in the early light. The prison was undone. Her shoes had been lost somewhere in her desperate flight, but she didn't care. She walked barefoot across the marble, each step aching with the weight of her survival. The morning air kissed her skin, carrying the salty breeze of the Atlantic. She inhaled deeply, as though she were breathing for the first time. She had made it. She was free. Behind her, the mansion loomed, still magnificent, still gilded, but no longer alive. It was just a building now, stripped of its illusions. Yet even as stone, it radiated memory. a reminder of the night she had almost lost herself inside it. Chiamaka paused, glancing back one last time. Ayoola stood on the balcony above, his silhouette framed against the dying glow of candlelight. He did not chase her. He did not shout. He simply leaned against the railing, his eyes following her, with an intensity that pierced through distance. And then, like a prayer whispered to the morning, his lips shaped her name. Chiamaka. She shivered. The sound was not angry, not vengeful. It was tender, yearning, as though he still believed she was his salvation. Tears burned her eyes. For a fleeting moment, she saw again the boy he had revealed beneath the billionaire mask, the boy terrified of being forgotten. She pitied him, but pity was not enough to bind her. She turned her back. Each step away from the mansion was a declaration. She would no longer live as someone's prophecy, someone's painting, someone's possession. She was her own. As the dawn unfurled, painting the Atlantic in gold, she whispered to herself, "Never again. No one will ever script my life but me." The city stretched out before her, vibrant, unpredictable, free. She walked into it barefoot, her pearls broken, her gown torn, her spirit scarred, but stronger than ever. The mansion shrank behind her, a forgotten dream of velvet and obsession, as she thought it was over. Weeks later, in Victoria Island, Chiamaka stood backstage at her newest fashion show. Spotlights flared against the runway, music pulsed, and models floated in gowns of silk and innovation. Her empire was alive, thriving, proving that she had survived without him. She exhaled, allowing herself a smile. This was hers, every stitch, every jewel, every light, hers. Then she saw it, leaning casually against a backstage wall, half hidden beneath a silk cloth, was a painting. Her breath caught. It was her. Again. Painted in strokes so lifelike they seemed to breathe. She was wearing one of the gowns from tonight's collection, a design she had only finished last week. The paint was still fresh, glistening faintly in the glow of stage lights. Her hands shook as her eyes darted to the corner of the canvas. There it was, the serpent and crown, that cursed symbol. Her heart dropped into her stomach. She spun toward the crowd, scanning faces, searching for him. But Ayoola was nowhere to be seen. And yet, she knew. His obsession had not ended with the mansion. It had only begun. The applause of the audience roared outside, but in Chiamaka's chest, there was only silence. The silence of a woman who realized she was still being watched, still being painted, still being written into a story that refused to let her go. Her freedom had been won, but her destiny was still stalking her. If this story kept you on the edge of your seat, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss the next billionaire drama. And tell me in the comments, what would you have done if you were Chiamaka?